Hello, everybody. I'm here sitting here with Faiqa. She's a credit expert, and she has some advice for us about keeping our credit together. And I just wanted to give you guys some information that can help you uh, build your credit, help you keep your credit, and help you in these terrible times or these different times that we're in, just to keep our credit together. Faiqa, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. How's everyone doing?
Everybody's doing okay. Just getting used to everybody being home all at the same time during the day and just trying to get work together. Right now, I'm out in the garage and in the little cave, just trying to, get some interviews done and uh, do some business.
So, do you
So,
want me to answer questions that you're going to have, or you want me to go over some things?
yeah, I have some just some basic stuff. Like I know, just if you can just talk about how the range, what's the range of credit scores and what's good credit and in consumer land, and I can talk about mortgage land, what's good credit.
So I've seen scores as low as in their 300s, and I've seen them as high as 800s, because there's different methods of pulling credit. Like I know some people will go to Credit Karma, Score Sense. When you go purchase a vehicle, when you get a loan, there's different ways. So sometimes people see them go up to 900. Those aren't real credit scores. There's an Advantage score and a credit score, and they're two different things. So it all comes down to what really you're applying for. If you're applying for the car, then those are the scores that are going to matter. If you're applying for the house, then those are the scores that are going to matter. And when it comes to credit cards, it depends on which bank you're applying, and it depends on which credit bureau they use to look at your credit. And that's the only score that matters in that case.
Okay. So as far as credit credit history, I know, like I called you last week, and one of my clients paid off all his bills and even his car, and you said his score is going to drop. And I was
That's
like, oh no, because we just think we pay our credit cards off and we're going to have good credit and our credit's going to bounce back. How long does it usually take after you pay those credit cards off? Should you pay them off?
so now, it's not really a black and white answer, because someone with really long credit history, if they pay their credit cards down to zero, it might not affect them as much as someone that maybe has newer credit history. But things that can drop your credit score, for example, are if your balances are over 10%, you start closing accounts, that will drop your credit score. If you pay off stuff, like any type of loans, like the car loan that your client paid off, because now that account is closed, that will drop his credit score. Running your credit, having an inquiry that you really don't need, that can drop your credit. And as far as how long it takes, again, to make it up, anywhere from 36 months, but again, that determines on the rest of your credit and your credit history, how long you've had it, how are you using the current credit that you have. There's just so many different factors, and I think the best answer to that is, if there is someone that's concerned about that, they can reach out to you, reach out to me. Let's look at the credit score or the credit report, so we can give them, what is best for them, because it's not across the board the same for everybody.
Okay. Should people close their credit cards off?
So I always tell my clients, if they're not planning to purchase in the next 6 months to a year, it's okay if they close some credit cards. For example, let's say I have 15 credit cards and I can't keep track of all of them, then yeah, it'll be okay to close some of them out. But remember, when determining which ones to close out, try to keep the ones that have the most history, because that's what's going to help you the most. Again, it's not a black and white answer, because again, we'd have to take a look at, is it a card that you're using? Is it, like, for example, the jewelry accounts, mattress accounts, furniture accounts, if you don't use those in X amount of time, they're going to close anyways. So, I mean, again, I would say let's take a look at the credit report, and then let's determine, if you're not making a purchase in the next maybe 6 months to a year, which ones are the best ones to close out if needed. But if you only have about 5 or 10, I don't really think it's you don't really absolutely need to close all of them. But if you wanted to, again, let us take a look at the credit. That's the best advice that I could say, because again, it's not the same answer is not for everybody.
Okay. And then what about secured cards as far as if you already had established credit and then you messed your credit up, do secure cards help or?
Yes, so they do, but not every bank will approve you, because just because it's a secured credit card doesn't mean there's no risk to the bank. There still is a risk to the bank when they give you the secured. So when you go for a secured credit card, they put the money in a savings account. But if someone filed a judgment on you, now they can get dibs on that money, or there are ways to overdraw that money. So if you have bad credit, again, depending on what bank you're going to be applying at, some banks do guarantee approval. Capital One is one of the easiest ones that I could say, just gives credit to everyone. But there's banks that if you owe them money, so for example, let's say Bank of America, they have secured credit cards, for example. Let's just use them as an example. If you had a bad debt with them in the past and now you're going for secured, they're never going to lend to you. Don't even apply. Any banks that you've had bad debt with, they're never going to give you business. No need to go back there again. But if you go to like secured, some of the ones that I like to use, Comerica is usually easy, US Bank is easy, and Capital One. Those are the easiest probably to get for secured credit cards. And another thing that will help you get approved on a credit card is your income. So even if you have not the best credit, you might apply, or even if you have good credit, okay credit, and you might apply, you still might get denied. If you're not employed, you'll get denied. If you don't have income, you'll deny. If you're not showing all of your income, you will still get denied. So again, they could reach out to you or me, and I could advise them on exactly how to make sure that they get approved.
Okay. And using authorized users, does that help with building up the credit score?
Okay, so that's a great question. So there's factors. First of all, I have been seeing lately that underwriters don't necessarily like or love clients being on a bunch of accounts that are authorized users only. I've seen that come up very recently. If it's a couple, they should still have a couple on their own. Here's the thing with authorized user. If, let's say, Nevin, you're adding me onto your credit card, but you have had lates in the past and you add me on, now I'm attached to your lates. Or let's say you just rack up your credit cards all the time. Yeah, you paid them off in full, but then because you're racking them up and I don't have good credit, but you added me on to help me, it doesn't necessarily help me. It could actually hurt me.
Okay.
The other thing that's important to remember is not, if let's say you add me on, but let's say they don't even report me to the credit bureaus, that's not going to help either. So it has to be reporting to all three credit agencies for it to actually help. And I have to make sure that, it's a higher risk for me than it is even for you. Why? Because anything that you do with that credit card, I will be attached to. And a lot of people need to understand that the risk is higher for the person that's being added on.
Okay, yeah, that's what I do tell people. I said, you find an uncle or grandma that has a card that's old and they don't really use it that much, and so it can kind of keep you out of trouble and build your score up like that.
Yeah, and it needs to be used. So someone like, let's say me, let's say just an example, I have terrible credit or no credit, and then you are willing to help me. If you don't use that card, it doesn't really help me either. Okay. So
Okay.
keeping a small balance on there just for the sake of helping me is going to help me out with that activity. Otherwise, it'll be like a dead card. Or if it's a card that, let's say, you hardly ever use, well, if it's been 6 months or a year and you haven't used it, and now, and a lot of people don't realize, but when you apply for a credit card, they are checking up on you on a regular basis, whether it's every 3 months. American Express does it on a bi-weekly basis. Some credit cards do a check-in every 6 months. So if they're checking up on you and you haven't used it, or let's say your credit status has changed, they could actually decide to close the account or report it inactive. And because you added me on, now that hurt me also. And especially in these times in 2007 and 8, I was working at the bank, and I remember they're just closing out credit lines, closing out credit cards, because they were foreseeing what might happen. And so this might be the same case about to happen now. We don't know, we haven't seen it yet, but it is quite possible that they will start reviewing credit files, start reviewing your credit history, how you're using your credit cards, are you maxing them out? And those are huge factors in them determining if they're going to allow you to keep the line of credit, decrease it, or close your account. And if you've just added me as an authorized user, all those factors can affect me also.
Okay. And I know like a lot of like, well, different people, they dispute stuff on the credit bureaus. And does that work? Like, is that one of your things that you do? You dispute something?
So when we see an account that's negative on a credit report, we look for error. Based on those errors, we will supply that information to the credit bureau. Then the credit bureau will go to the collection agency or the creditor to verify if what we're telling them is correct. Then the collection agency or the creditor has 30 days to reply. What we do a little bit differently when it comes to collection companies, especially, is first and foremost, it's important to remember that nobody has ever legally signed a contract with a collection company. And when a debt is sold to a collection company, the chances of them having the documentation are, less than, they don't have it 75 to 95% of the time. They're not going to have it. But what a lot of people don't realize is writing to the credit bureaus, and then also they have the legal right to ask for the documents from the collection companies. And that's a step that a lot of people don't take, and that's what we educate them on, that it is important to take that extra step, because like I said, 75 to 95% of the time they will not have it, therefore they cannot legally report it. It doesn't mean that they no longer owe the debt. So if someone's disputing, or let's say we're working on credit, we work on getting things deleted, just because it comes off doesn't necessarily mean that they don't owe the debt. It just means it's not on their credit report anymore. And then that goes into, well, what state was the debt collected on? Can it be collected? Is it, past statute? What's the amount? Then we determine, can this person be sued for this amount? And if they can, then we talk about what we need to do about that. And if they can't, then we just work on getting it deleted, showing them the laws that were broken.
Okay. I know like when we go, well, a lot of new clients that I get, they say somebody's working on my credit and I have this dispute. And then when we go apply for the loan, the lender says we have to remove these disputes, and then the score drops again.
That's right.
And so it sometimes disqualifies them for the loan that we were fighting, well, trying to get them approved for.
Yeah, so if there's an accounting dispute, I know a lot of, again, underwriters, lenders don't want to see that. And so the goal would be, if it can be deleted, to get it out, just to get it off of the credit report altogether.
Okay, and then what's your, like, usually, like I used to tell my clients, go to opt-out pre-screen to try to bump their points 5 to 10 points, bump their score 5 to 10 points. What's your advice on using opt-out pre-screen?
I don't know what that is.
Oh, okay. So what I learned a while back, opt-out pre-screen is how you get all those credit card things in the mail. I guess the banks are the different creditors, put your name on these lists, and then you do the opt-out pre-screen, and it takes you off of those lists. So it usually bumps your score like 5 to 10 points or so.
Okay. Wow, I didn't know that. I'd love for you to share that information with me.
Okay.
This is the first time in 13 years that I've ever heard that. That's great.
Okay.
There's other things that, like inquiries, we talked about that briefly. We could get those deleted, but just not applying. Like if you don't need the card, or you just applied for a card and they denied you, no need. You should wait about 6 months before you even reapply, because reapplying anywhere else could just be an automatic denial, not even because you have bad credit, but just because you recently applied somewhere else. And that could drop you 20 points. So if they can prevent, little stuff like this, bringing down the balances to 10%, that can make a huge difference. That could also bump their credit scores. If there is a charge off, let's say, on their credit report that's 0, in most cases, if that is in dispute, it'll help. If they put in dispute, it'll help bump their credit score, and lenders in most cases won't care because it says 0 on there.
Okay. Now, in this current environment of people not working, people may not be able to pay their bills, what's your advice to these different people?
First of all, there's a lot of stimulus packages out there. So, you know, get with a professional that can help you identify if you qualify for something. Um, there's a lot of money going around. I know for small businesses, so many different programs. For unemployment, they're giving an extra, you know, amount for the first 4 months. So that's the most important thing. The second thing is, you know, if you really care about your credit, just try not to be late. And a lot of companies are working with you. Just make sure that you listen to exactly what the terms and conditions are, or you are reading the fine print. Because in most cases, they'll let you skip, but by the end of the third or the fourth month, when their term is over, you will be required to pay that whole 3 or 4 months that you didn't pay before.
Okay.
Again, it's going to depend on the company. It's going to depend on what they offer. A lot of times they can lower the interest rate for you. I see a lot of companies just doing that, which drops your payment right away. Actually, I was going to work on that today myself, calling my credit card company and say, hey, can we lower our payment? So that's one thing. Another thing is, you know, asking them if they have any kind of deferment or skip payment. There's a lot of credit unions I've heard that are allowing, you know, their clients to skip 1 or 2 payments, which could, you know, that could definitely help saving that money. Mortgage servicing companies, I know they're allowing it, but just know the terms and conditions. I mean, if it comes down to being able to eat or paying your bills, at the end of the day, you know, you got to eat at the end of the day. It is what it is. And hopefully, you know, and you know, this is unprecedented. I have never seen this. And I've been working, you know, oh my gosh, over 18, 19 years with people with credit. I've never seen anything. So are these banks going to ding you for the lates? We hope they're not. And they're saying that they're going to work with us, but we don't know.
Yeah,
So until
exactly.
it all starts unfolding, until we all really see what's going to happen, really don't know what's going to happen. But if someone tells you, let's say, for example, I call my bank today, they tell me they're going to do XYZ. The most important thing is get their name, repeat back exactly what they said to you, and try to get it in writing. Okay, because sometimes they'll just tell you what you want to hear just to get you off the phone. Or they might have said something and maybe, you know, it could mean 2 different things and they didn't explain it to you. I would just say, ask as many questions, get it in writing, take note of everybody that you're talking to, take their name. And if you can, you know, if it's because you have to skip a payment or whatever, I always say speak to supervisor. It's okay, just wait for the supervisor, because supervisor is less likely to you know, lie to you.
Okay. So you said get some paperwork. Are you asking them to mail something or fax it over?
Whatever, I just get it in writing. You know, if they
Okay.
say, well, we can't mail you anything, what I always say, okay, well, can you notate my account? I will wait for them to write up the statement. So for example, let's say I call City Cards today and the rep tells me, Faiqa, you know, we're going to lower your interest rate from 12 to 5%. I'm going to say, great, Jane Doe, thank you for that. Can you send me a letter? She could say, you know what, we're not giving out letters. Okay, Jane, can you notate my account? I will wait for her to enter that in my account. And then I'm going to ask, hey, Jane, by the way, can you repeat back to me what you just said? So you said that I could skip 3 months of payment and I would not be late. Is that correct? Yes. You also said that I'm going to get, now my interest rate has dropped. Is that correct? Have her read back to you exactly what she notated in your account. Because sometimes, so if they can't give it in writing, they can at least notate your account.
Okay. Okay. How can people get in touch with you about working with you, getting your credit fixed and repaired, getting their credit fixed and repaired?
I'll give out my phone number at 714-612-0538. And, you know, I just want to say, even if you're not going to, you know, come with me for credit repair, if I can help you with anything, please, you know, if it's just a question with something that we talked about, or you just want to know anything, I'm here to help.
Okay, yeah. So how I found out about FICA, one of my clients came to me in September about 4 years ago with a 580 credit score, no, 575 and only 2 trade lines. And then within 3 months, he came back with a 712 with 3 trade lines. I was like, give me that person's number so so I can have her handy to fix other people's credit in. So we've been communicating and sending different clients back and forth. So
Yeah,
if you
but they
guys,
have to listen.
they have to listen because he
Yeah,
he
you have
listens
to
to
call.
everything,
Yeah.
and it was I was shocked to see it jump to 712. I was like, I need that number.
It's very possible, you guys. It is real. I know there's a lot of companies out there that say this and that, but you have to follow directions. The program is very, very structured. So if I tell you to do ABC, but you do GFG, it's not going to work. Okay. But again, you know, we're here to help you, whether you become a client or not. If there's anything that we can do, any questions that we can answer, feel free to text me or call me anytime.
Okay, thank you so much, Faiqa, for
Thank
the
you for
information.
having me.
Thank you.